So I'm actually going to put this ball spawn object, I'm just gonna chuck it right up here, and I want the spawn direction to go to the right. I want this to spawn let's spawn a corruption ball. And I need to make a component here for this guy, so we want like we have the ball spawn point, and we'll call server spawn ball. So why don't we just have a try create ball? No, we already have a try create ball. It's called server spawn ball, and it works, so we shouldn't need to do anything. What we're going to need to do is we're going to make a component which we can attach to this thing, which will listen for the event that we need. So blueprint class based on an actor component. Let's call this BP spawn ball on what, game events? Yeah, spawn ball on game flag. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to bind to the events for this guy. So whenever the game flag is activated, we are going to do the thing. So we're going to be looking for specific game flags. So let's just make it game flag. It's going to be a string. Let's make it public. So what we're going to do is break the data. If this unique key is equal to ours, then we'll be able to do the thing. So when this is activated and it matches, we are going to call our parent object and we are going to get it. So we're going to cast our owner to thing. So why don't we just make an owner? Let's see, spawn point. That's going to be a BP spawn. I guess it's a ball spawn point reference. So we're going to call get owner, and we're going to cast to BP spawn ball spawn point. If it is true, then we are going to do the things. Otherwise, we're going to be angry and log out a warning. So set this guy. Otherwise, let's do our warn log. A ball spawn game flag component is not attached to a valid ball spawn point actor. So all we'll have to do is we'll just take this spawn point and we'll call server spawn ball. We also want to go through here and we want to make sure we have authority. If we don't have authority, then we are not the server who owns the object, so we're not going to do anything. I'm trying to keep these things working over the network, or at least some semblance of it should work, even though these things are pretty much all single player, so. So let's see. What is this? Authority to kill a minority. Hold on a minute. We're gonna have a vote on that. Alright, so this has just leather ball as server spawn ball. Wait, what? Oh, that's a default. Right, okay. So we should just have 111s and 1.5. So our default ball is going to be the leather ball. Oh, that's our default entity. Right. This is just linear damping override. Yeah, those are percentages. So the question is, if we weren't able to spawn the ball for some reason, should we do something? That can go very wrong. Trust the Germans, you know? Watch out, it's the Germans. They do things. Let me see. Rule 5. Alright, so the server ball spawn, if we don't spawn the ball, we should keep track of like wants to spawn. And it should be an integer because let's just say like the ball doesn't spawn here. Then we're going to want to spawn it as soon as we can. So we're going to need a tick event here. And basically if this is greater than 0, we're going to try to, we're going to try to spawn the ball. 1 ball per frame or whatever, right? And if that returns true, then we're going to grab this guy and decrement. Because basically what happened is, like, something else comes in and we handled a game event. Like, somebody just, shoved the orichalcum into the idol's eye, but something was in the way of the ball that's supposed to drop out of it, and it didn't spawn. And so Indiana Jones is just sitting there in the bottom of Atlantis for the next, 2 million years, just kind of waiting. It's like, lead ball's supposed to come out. What the hell, guys? So we need a tick event there for that. So the question would be, other things we would want would be only once. So this would be times to fire event. I'm just going to put that at 1. Alright, so if this is equal to 0, then we can go ahead and do this. So if it's times to fire event is this, then we can do that. So I'll have a variable times fired. We're going to set that to 0 to start with. So if times to fire event is less than times fired, I guess we can do an OR here. Then we can go ahead and try to fire this thing. And then we'll get this guy and increment it. So if we're only supposed to spawn, like a certain number of times or whatever, then we can do that. Cool. So we should be able to do is go to this guy. We should be able to add a component. So we're going to add a spawn ball on game flag component to it. The game flag is going to be captured rune ball. I guess captured leather ball times to fire event once. And that's going to make a ball when the leather ball is caught by this guy. And how we're going to set that up is game flag. Let's just make sure I got this right. So we should see a corruption ball plunk out of here. I just run into a wall. Nice. So we need the leather ball. And it didn't fire, did it? Thank you for following. Colin1. Or Colin. Let's see. So our game flag is captured leather ball. So that's the same. So and. So times fired is 0. So if this is 0 or times to fire event is less than, yeah, okay, so I've got my logic backwards here. Times fired needs to be less than this guy. Got him. So we should see this thing pop out. There we go. And it didn't pop out again, as it's not supposed to. It is more entertaining than it should be. Can I knock it? Can I knock it out of the zone with just the ball? Apparently not. Yeah, that's the corruption ball. Oh, that's interesting. The Oh yeah, because that's the leather ball holder. What the? Ugh. I'm losing my mind. But the corruption ball is gone, as it should be. All right, excellent. So we have gameplay events that are doing the thing. All right, what else are we gonna need? So let me see. What exactly do I need to do next? Let me see what's on my list. So, we have the ball holder. It throws events. We have the hideable objects. We have the wind gusts. What other things would we like to do? It would be nice to have a platform which appears with the activated thing. Platform which also disappears when deactivated. I would like the wind gust to activate / deactivate with the thing. So why don't we do that? Why don't we make the components that are going to work for this guy? Alright, so wind, we have periodic wind component. We need another component here. So let's make an actor component. So it should be BP toggle wind with game flag. I am starting to lose my mind. It's an actor component. Toggle wind with game flag. So what we're gonna need here is we're gonna need the, what did I call it? Game flag? It's pretty much the same sort of stuff, isn't it? I mean, I could do like an active, deactive. Let me see, like, I guess there's other things there. I mean, I could have something which implements like an, already? When did you start? Sorry, Karakan, I must have missed what you were saying there. Or I missed what I was saying there. Yeah, saying when did I start? I started like, what, 5 hours ago or something? Should I actually go make like some sort of base startable sort of thing? Well, why don't we just do it one off for now and just deal with it that way? Because some of these, like as soon as you start making like a whole big complicated system, yeah. When did you start losing? It's been a while, kid. Um, as soon as you start making a big complicated system, like oh well, this class has the interface of I activatable and activate this and all that stuff. Like you can make a giant, really beautiful, like nice architecture where you can call start and finish and all these other functions on stuff all over the place. But you end up hacking all that to pieces after a while with games. So sometimes it's better to like if you're not on a big project and you don't need to make a whole big ass system with 500 different objects behind it. It can sometimes be better not to do that and just kind of one off a lot of stuff because you end up hacking it to pieces anyway. Yeah, I've definitely had that happen where you're like, oh man, I've been working for like 12 hours, I'm totally destroyed. But that's kind of how I work is I try to work when I feel like working so that when I don't feel like working, I can not work. I'm trying to think if there is a better way for me to actually register for these events or some other thing. I mean, there is a better way, obviously. There is always a better way. The other thing is sometimes if you're trying to make a system um, and you might not always know what you're trying to build at the start. You might usually if you try to start making a system, you're very confident what you think you know and what you think you want. So it's sometimes better to just kind of make a few one-off garbage things and then if you need to make a big system to handle all of it, like these game data flags, after you've got a few of examples, you you don't just think you know what you need. You have actual examples. Okay, so we want to let's do our has authority, which is important. So, all right, if we do have authority, we'll do this. Let's get our UI So game flag activated and game flag deactivated. So game flag activated. Game flag deactivated. That's what I should be doing. All right, I think I know what I should be doing. I should be making a component that we then derive from and change what the activate, and deactivate components functions do. That's what I should be doing. So why don't I build this one kind of like a generic thing? So if this is going to be a generic thing, we're not going to have wind, because that's not a thing we know about. We just know about the stuff. So it'd be good on condition met, on game flag activated, and then this will be on game flag deactivated. All right, so we'll have the game flag, we'll have a threshold, we'll have keep active. We will have different types of how to trigger this thing. So this should return a successful variable, and we can do that whole pending thing. All right, and this is going to take, we should probably take the actual game flag data. So we'll just call it data and game flag data pass by reference, so we can save a little bit of copying. Same thing for the deactivated. Okay, good. Starting work, yeah, it's really difficult to stop after a handful of hours. I mean, lunch break, who even goes on lunch break? Don't talk about lunch. I'm already hungry here, Karakan. So we're gonna need an activations pending integer like we had for the previous one. So if success is false, then we'll have a pending activation. We need a tick in here as well, so I'll go combine this with the other blueprint when I finish it. Let me see. We don't have the game data, so activations pending is actually going to need to be an array of flags, right? So we're actually going to have to call add on this guy like this. So if success is false, then we're going to add a copy of this guy to this, and instead of this guy here, we're going to want to have this, let's say the length of this is greater than 0. Then we're going to grab the, we're going to get this sub-0, pass it in, and if it's true, this can get real complicated. I'm thinking about like pending activations and deactivations and all this stuff, and if like you add to the activations pending list and then like you drop below the threshold, it's still going to call this pending list. But if you pop above it, like how do you know? I don't know. I'm just going to keep it simple and allow for the bug of like if you queue a pending. So it'd be like if you have a thing and then you block off the exit node for the ball with a stone, you can go back to the previous ball thing, grab the ball out of that and bring it forward, unblock the thing, the ball will spawn even though the conditions aren't met. So the gate is open that shouldn't be open, and you can get both balls through, and then you can have the ghost on your final mission if you like. Whatever, like I'll allow it. That's how bugs happen with, like crazy bugs you wouldn't expect. Like, how in the hell did you get through that with the thing? It'd be like, well, if this switch is down and this switch is down, and you cover up this other one with a big ass statue for 5 seconds, it'll allow you to take this other thing, and then it raises, and then it's whatever. So if this is true, then we will remove this from the start. Remove index 0. The question would also be if the game flag deactivated thing is true, we could just clear the activations pending. That'd be another one that we could do. Just do that. Okay, so we want threshold. So we want in activations, activation count. Yeah. So that's going to be an integer. All right, so if activation count is there, so if activation count is greater than or equal to the threshold for activation, so if we're waiting for 3 things and 3 things have happened, that brings in another point. We might want combinations of stuff, right? Like these 3 things did the thing. So you're waiting for 3 different game flags to happen. Like this and this and this. What I could do is have things that fire events and kind of chain them together as opposed to worrying too much about it. Alright, so I'll increment that guy. So if the threshold is greater than, we'll do the thing. Okay. Over here. Activation count. Decrement. So if the activation count is less than the threshold, then we will deactivate the things. We will see you when you get back. Should we have deactivations pending? I mean, we might as well, right? Like, if we have activations that are pending, we may as well also have deactivations because the issue would be that the deactivate does something like the activate, where it's supposed to spawn a ball. So we'll want a success here for this guy. So why not, right? So we'll branch on this. So if success is false, then we're going to grab this guy. We're going to add to it. Thing. These are getting a little bit larger than I would like them to be. Like, they're getting big enough that they should be like functions. But I can always move them when I need them moved. So we're gonna throw a sequence in here so I can kind of break these up a little bit. Uh-oh. The hell happened there? We had an assert on something, and I'm not sure. Didn't log anything out, and I went through it too quickly to figure out what it was. It's like when we were in Molten Games, and one of these, the artists and designers were having some problems with something, and we had this tool that we called the Bluntroll panel, because the code name for the game was Blunderbuss, so Bluntroll panel just kind of made sense as a name, right? And this thing would basically set up your environment, set up your databases for the game, do all the stuff that you needed it to do. And the designers are having trouble with something. They went over, they called us over to figure out like what's going on. And of course, the first thing happens when they open the Bluntroll panel is it popped up this big nasty error message, and they just immediately closed it. And the guy looked over his shoulder, was like, "What the hell? Like, you just closed the error message." They're like, "Oh no, that's not an error message. That's fine." You're like, "No, like that's the fucking error message. You're supposed to pay attention to that." He's like, "Oh, we just close it all the time." You'd be like, "That literally is telling you what's broken, and you just always close it immediately." Like, what do you mean, So, activations. Yeah, users. People, what a bunch of bastards. So what do we call this? Times to activate. Times to activate, and then we also have activations so far. Windows basically trains you to ignore error messages, kind of, yeah. But there you go. I can be condescending, annoying to people and tell them, why are you ignoring your messages? And then, like, literally, I do the same thing. So, what does that make me? A hypocrite? Nah. I'm just going to choose to ignore that entire thing. There's a good book. All right, there's a book that I read that I really liked, which was the modal errors are pretty bad, especially when they are. Yeah, it's definitely true. One of the books I read was mistakes were made, but not by me. And it's basically all about how your brain rationalizes all the mistakes, like all the things that go wrong, and like having low self-esteem is actually like physically damaging to a person, right? Like it in an evolutionary sense, as well as probably just mentally draining and annoying. Like being all pissed off about yourself and kicking yourself when you're down is not something that like like there is not a race of people or of animals on the planet that just always are super depressed. Like there's like a species of otter that when it fails to find clams to smash gets super depressed, right? Like it's not a that race of otters would be extinct pretty damn fast, and we're like the only people, the only animals that get all super depressed all the time about our plight, right? So whenever there's something that doesn't make sense or something that your brain needs to rationalize, like it's just built into us to rationalize, like everything. It's a defense mechanism, not a fault you're spoiled with. Yeah. So the whole premise of the book was basically like, uh, you should know that every single time that you're in a situation where something is something has gone wrong, pretty much everybody's brain is wired most of the time to to blame everybody else and to find very good reasons why the thing inside of your noggin is not to blame for the current situation. So to basically be aware of that and try to deal with it the best you can. But that was definitely summed up my experience at Amazon for a lot of stuff, where like stuff would be going horribly wrong. Like deployments wouldn't work, or builds would be broken, or the game would suck, or all the above all at once. You get angry at mothers, Karakan. Hey now, don't get angry at mothers. They're nice people most of the time. Well, depends. But just everybody always had a really good excuse why they weren't the one at fault. It's just amazing. You just get angry. You just start pumping out the rage chemicals. Okay, so we've got the deactivation so far, activations so far. So what we want to do is we want to check if our activation so far is greater than or equal to our times to activate. No, it needs to be a less than. So activation so far is less than times to activate, or times to activate is equal to 0. Then we will activate the thing. Otherwise, we will not activate. Thank you for following. JBean div tag. JBean's div tag. What? I don't even understand. Is it a bot and like halfway through the creation of the user, like it tried to load a web page? So actually, Blueprint is visualized C++. Yes, that is very true. If you look at, if you actually toggle the nativization, let me see if I can find it. I think it's an intermediate. Where is all this? Where would it be? I need to check my build server. It'll tell me where these files are. Thank you for following. PRVFX. Welcome. Let's see. Where is this? I'm trying to read a build log at the moment and find this file. Okay, so it's inside of intermediate plugins, Windows no editor, nativized assets, source, nativized assets, and then why don't I find something that kind of makes sense? So this would be inside of public, and then do we have like a spawn point? Yeah, here's, so this is the some of the C++ code that gets generated. This is old, but you can see this is the header file that gets generated for the ball spawn point right now, and you can see it's got all these U properties with like spawn effects and play effects and all these other things that it generates. And it's not the easiest to read blueprint code, but I mean C++ code, but it is there. Let me see that. The C++ code that it generates is like, you can see it's got crap loads of headers, and the actual code it has these massive variable names that are just. We thought the future programming would be done via drag and drop. Oh man, what's that, like UML diagramming is the future, right? Like this is how we thought programming would be. You just boot up Visio, and you go to more shapes, and you'd go to like, you know, crap like compliant. Yeah, compliant. You'd have all these different shapes that you'd be like, all right, well, this is a for loop, and then it goes into a star and all this other shit. Yeah, I remember that. And by I remember that, I mean I don't remember that because I didn't program anything until 2006. I wouldn't say it's untenable for AAA scope projects. Like the nativized code is actually very fast. And the AAA projects that I've worked on, it depends on what scale you mean for AAA projects for some things. But the way I'm doing it, with a lot more logic in here, yeah, I wouldn't put this sort of crap inside of blueprints if I was working on like an Assassin's Creed game. But if I was working on kind of like a 60-person studio game, I could see a lot more blueprint stuff like this being okay, being tenable. There's kind of a difference. Like, where do you draw the line with like what's a AAA game, and there's just tiers above like what you would normally think about when you've got like games that are made by people like Ubisoft or whatever, where you've literally got 1,000 people all basically working on the same thing. It's like it's not AAA anymore. It's like global. It's like you start arguing about if somebody's galactic or world tier or whatever the fuck in the Marvel universe. All right, so the question is, if our activations so far, I need to clear out our pending activations if we have reached the limit of activations. So if activations so far is greater than or equal to the times activated and times to activate does not equal 0. Except, yeah, world tier. Yeah, it's definitely one of those. So I think blueprints in them do, but I mean, it's more like at some level you need to build big ass systems, and yeah, if you're working on something like Destiny or something, then yeah, you're absolutely right. But the blueprint nativization stuff is actually pretty good. Like it generates a whole bunch of code, but as far as I've seen, the code is not like awful. So in terms of its performance, so you could get away with it. I think the big problem that comes in is if you have, it's more other sorts of things. Like if I go to Perforce and I want to go look back in, version control and see what changes were made, I can't do that with U assets. Like I could kind of do it. There is like a diff in history thing, but it if you change the name or path of a file, the history doesn't work anymore, and all this other crap. So and I can actually put this not as an edge condition, but as a starting node before I even do this thing. So I think probably it breaks down not on a performance level first, but probably breaks down at just a organizational level first. Okay, so we have a total number, activation count, times to activate. All right, so it's going to be about this deactivate if keep active is false, then we'll want to do this sort of stuff. Otherwise, we don't care. It's like, well, it's already there, so don't call deactivate. All right, so what should our category be for these guys? I think it's going to be game data flag. Let's go ahead and throw this in components. And we're going to want to change the name to BP game data toggler. Something like that. All right, so let's go to our our ball spawn thing here, and we're gonna want to reparent this guy. So reparent blueprint, let's reparent it to toggler. And then basically none of this stuff needs to work. We want to get rid of pretty much everything. So we don't need our game flag. Or any of this stuff. So we just have our spawn point. That's what we need. Don't need that either. And we need to override the game flag activated. There's nothing here, so what we can do is just grab this guy, put him in here, and just return true if it worked. And that's all we gotta do. So if we go to our toggler here, ball spawn on game data flag, we're gonna need that game data. So captured leather ball needs to spawn, so it's gonna be captured level ball times to activate 1. Activation count. I don't think that's the right variable. Was it? Yeah, it was threshold that we wanted. Let's set our threshold to 1 by default. So times to activate once, threshold is 1, game flag is capture leather ball. Let's make sure it works. Yeah, I worked with some people, like I haven't worked on kind of a global scale game like Call of Duty or any of that. Like Mass Effect 3, we were working on, some of the mobile titles for them and stuff like that. But we weren't involved in some of the others. But like stuff like Call of Duty and the rest there, where you've got these massive numbers of things going on, it's just it's a different level of game development. Didn't fire. Why? Where you've got, hundreds of Xboxes and all this sort of crap. Like they describe like the warehouses for the QA people on Call of Duty, and how it would actually generate its own atmosphere because of all the sweaty QA dudes just in really hot conditions in what pretty much amounted to a warehouse. It's just there'd be, like a really hot build server cluster of like all these Xboxes and all these electronic pieces of equipment, and how basically just there's so much heat and like sweat getting generated by all these warm bodies and all this active electronics equipment that it would just, there would be a kind of a breeze upwards in the middle, and it's just like, God. Yeah, I would probably, yeah. Time of their life. Eh. All right. So the data toggler, let's actually just go and see what happens with it.